There's a stat. Let me start with this. And one of the reasons I'm having this conversation is because when I look at our community, I believe the one breakdown, like if somebody says, well, what's the silver bullet for solving the problems of the black community? I would say family. Family is the silver bullet. And by the way, that's not a silver bullet because there's so many aspects to it. But family, like strong families, I believe are the way for us to begin solving a lot of our ills. And I wanted to have this conversation to support the brothers who may not fully understand and know exactly how to move forward with the women. Or one of the things we heard on one of the shows is a sister call in and talk about two of her sons who have been, I think the oldest had been in a relationship and he was hurt so badly. He was kind of like, I'm kind of cool on that. I'm speaking to brothers like that because while you may have had a very negative experience with one woman, I do believe that there is another woman who would make a phenomenal wife. And I want to teach you how to spot her.
If you want to be about it, come on, let's talk about it. Change up the things you see. Open your mind to possibilities. Find your power, passion, and your purpose. You know it's time for you to walk in greatness. Let's murder mediocrity. Slay your goals, live out your dreams. Right now. Inspirational perspective. Open your mind to a better life. It's time to live your dream. Your purpose now. Inspirational perspective. Let's slay your goals.
Today's show is specifically to men and to the brothers because, again, this is Linnell's opinion, but the subject that I'm talking about only can be addressed to the men and to the brothers because, based on my opinion, I believe that only the men and the brothers should be in a position to propose marriage. Now, that may or may not get me in trouble in 2024. But again, I started with it's my opinion. And today's topic is how to know when to propose marriage. Like how to know when exactly, bro, you should propose marriage. Now, to the sisters who are listening, I don't think you want to just go and turn the dial, okay? Because I think you want to know the traits and signs for if a man is seriously dating you. And so if you listen from that perspective, then a lot of the things I instruct the men to do in terms of being very clear about when to propose, then you will notice this in the dating pattern. You're like, okay, he is serious, because one of the things that I've heard, and as a man, I've never experienced this in a relationship, but relationship anxiety. And from working with female clients, etc., often what I might hear is this relationship anxiety. And really the anxiety is coming because there's a lack of clarity in the relationship. And sometimes it's clear, like it's, hey, we are committed. He says he's my boyfriend. He does claim me. But the relationship anxiety comes because they're curious about, well, what's happening next? Like there's a nervous energy around, will this lead to marriage? And so for anyone who, like any women who have that relationship anxiety, I think this is a really good show for you too. And for those of us who are married, I think it's a great reminder. For the men who are married, I would love to hear from you as we go in terms of how you knew it was time to propose. Like, how did you know? And I'll start with this. There are seven things that I believe, like 7 items a man should have checked on his checklist before he proposes to a woman. I'll start with this. Most of us, when I say most of us, most men, we know almost immediately if we will marry a woman. If there's we know if there's no possibility at all, like she's cute, she's pretty, she's funny, I'm attracted to her, all those things, but I wouldn't marry her. Like there's almost an immediate, I would say, typically after the first date, a guy's like, okay, now it could take 3, but I would say most men, and brothers, keep me honest here. Maybe it took you longer. Give me a phone call and correct me, check me, 773-591-1690, because I don't want to be the voice of all men. But I've talked to a lot of us. I've talked to a lot, especially over the last few weeks. And this seems to be fairly true, that most men are very clear about when they meet a woman, they say, okay, I would marry her. I would marry her. So then the rest of it really is the woman's to lose, which I think is an important point for the ladies who are listening. So that's number one. And I'm going to talk a little bit about my relationship with my wife and how that went, because I proposed fairly quickly. Partly because, like, the items on this list I'm sharing with you all were checked. It was like, but so that's number one. The second thing is I'm only speaking to men who are willing to earn a woman's love. And I think that's an important caveat for this conversation, partly because, let's be clear, there are some men out here who aren't ready to step into the fullness of manhood. Because one of the things that a woman will do is she will call you forward. She will call your man forward. I mean, that's just, it's part of what a woman does, right? That's part of the polarity that a woman brings into a man's life. And so she will call your man, the man in you, forward. And if you're not ready for that, then you're not ready for marriage. And if you get married, likely the marriage is not going to be successful. And she's going to leave you. Like 80% of divorces, I believe, are filed by women. And I believe there's some women who are leaving some good men. And all you have to do is get on TikTok and Instagram to hear them, their regrets, right? All you got to do is regret divorce. And it's like a bunch of them who are like, I moved too quick, blah, blah, blah. And by the way, part of what I'd like to do today is help brothers avoid those type of women, right? That's a different section of women. But on the other side, like, it's a two-way street. I believe there are also men who were not ready for the responsibility of marriage. They were not ready to be called forward as men. And because they were not ready to be called forward as men, maybe a woman married them and realized that I'm not married to a man. I'm married to a boy, if you're curious about what I'm talking about. And I don't know if I want to spend the rest of my life with a boy. And so that might be one of the reasons they move on. Either way, I wanted to start with that because this conversation is for men who are like, you have a desire to be a man, you want to show up as a man, and you want to mature as a man. I believe part of that process is marriage. I do. There's a stat. Let me start with this. And one of the reasons I'm having this conversation is because when I look at our community, I believe the one breakdown, like if somebody says, well, what's the silver bullet for solving the problems of the black community? I would say family. Family is the silver bullet. And by the way, that's not a silver bullet because there's so many aspects to it. But family, like strong families, I believe are the way for us to begin solving a lot of our ills. And I wanted to have this conversation to support the brothers who may not fully understand and know exactly how to move forward with the women. Or one of the things we heard on one of the shows is a sister call in and talk about two of her sons who have been, I think the oldest had been in a relationship, and he was hurt so badly. He was kind of like, I'm kind of cool on that. I'm speaking to brothers like that because while you may have had a very negative experience with one woman, I do believe that there is another woman who would make a phenomenal wife. And I want to teach you how to spot her. So one of my prayers when I was single was, God, don't let me, in my stupidity, allow the right woman to slip past me. Like it was that. And when I say my stupidity, because I understood that in some ways I was allowing aspects of myself, my lower self, to lead my dealings with women. Right? And I'm just being straight. I understood that about me. And because of that, one of my prayers was, God, please don't let me and my antics and how I'm moving allow me to miss the woman you have for me. Don't let me make that mistake. That was a constant prayer for me. Like I didn't want to, be in motion, moving so quickly that good woman was sitting right in front of me, and I didn't know. I didn't know that she was there. And I firmly believe he answered that prayer, and I'm incredibly grateful for it. And there was something else that happened for me that also supported me in this. I made a decision to begin dating with more intention. And I believe that's one of the reasons why my wife didn't slip past me, that I changed my behavior. So that prayer actually led to a behavior change. And I'm sharing that with any man right now where, you're kind of like, hey, man, I hear you, but I'm not necessarily there mentally, emotionally, I'm just not really there yet. Then I would say to you, as you listen to this, then, just commit yourself to that prayer. Commit yourself to that prayer. Don't let a good woman pass me by. I want to check in with both Titus and Ade real quick, because this is something my coach did for me early on that actually helped me understand that I wanted to be married. Because for a long time, I held the belief that marriage was just, it's a sham. It doesn't work. I've seen too many marriages break down. I've seen too many men who were successful, who had acquired some level of wealth, lose half of that or more because they connected themselves to some woman and they made horrible decisions. And it's just, I can trust me sometimes. Right? And I don't know if I can only trust me sometimes. How do I completely trust another person, let alone a woman where I don't really understand them? And I'm serious. That's kind of where I was. That's where I was. And so here I am today. I'm married and something shifted. And so here's the question that I want to ask you two. Would you marry? Well, first, let me ask this. Do you all want to be married at some point? Let me ask that. Do you all, turn on our day's mic. Do you all want to be married at some point?
Yes.
Yes. So Ade, yes?
Yes.
Yes, Titus? Yes. Okay. So yes. All right. So then you do want to be married. And so if you met the woman that met, and I'm going to walk through the 7 qualifications. The first is you have to be willing to earn a woman's love. That's first off, right? I don't think you really want to marry. Let me take the think out. You do not want to marry a woman who pursued you. It just won't. You follow? By the way, I'm talking to men because I know somebody will be like, right? What you say? You can't listen to the rest of this. She done turned it off already on them, right? You don't want to marry a woman and there's a huge reason for that, because how we're built and how women are built, at some point, even if she pursued you, I can promise you after marriage, she's going to pause and want you to pursue her. And if you don't know how to pursue her, there's going to be a breakdown in the relationship. So this message is to men who are willing to earn the love of a woman. But in this case, let's say that you meet a woman that meets all of your conditions of satisfaction, your non-negotiables, your conditions of satisfaction. How long would it take you to marry her? Titus and Ide. How long would it take you to marry her? She meets all of them. Everything.
Maybe within, let's say, a couple months, maybe 3 months.
3 months?
Yeah.
Okay.
3, 4, yep.
Titus, what about you?
I would say probably maybe a year or two.
A year
just so we can learn. She meets all the criteria, but just so we can learn each other a little bit more to be in a healthy relationship, I would say maybe 1 or 2 years.
Okay. She meets all the qualifications, bro. You gonna wait 2 years? You're gonna gamble for 24 months on that?
Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Okay. Why not longer then?
That's a great question. I wouldn't want to wait too long because I wouldn't want her to lose interest. And as far as, because the mind is something that, gets distracted easily. So if she does meet all that criteria, but maybe she doesn't think that I'm serious enough, maybe she might want to try to move forward. And I wouldn't want that.
Okay. So no more than 24 months for you.
Correct. Yeah.
At what point would you tell her, Titus, that she's the one for you, though? Like, hey, she meets all of your non-negotiables. She meets all your conditions of satisfaction for the woman that you would marry. So at what point would you say, I'm going to marry you?
That's a great question. I'll probably go because I could feel that in maybe 2 months' time or something like that. So
Okay.
I would probably tell her maybe I'll say realistically something about maybe a year.
Okay, got you. Within a year
I would
of
say
being
that,
together,
for sure.
You would let her know, like, hey, I'm going to marry you.
Yeah, just because I don't want to,
Okay.
like go too fast, if that makes sense.
Got you. Okay. All right. I think the ladies right now, so we got some brothers in trouble just a moment ago. Like, Ade definitely got some brothers in trouble.
Yeah.
He said 3 months, right?
All
But again, remember, like, this is important for the ladies to remember that I said meets all non-negotiables in every condition of satisfaction, right? Yeah. So in many ways, this is the perfect woman, and the perfect woman doesn't exist for any of us, all right? Yeah. My wife is the perfect woman for me, but she did not meet all my conditions of satisfaction. But she met a lot of them, over 80% of them, which is why I was like, I need to lock this down. Okay, all right. So I want to go to number 2 then. And again, men, this is for you all in terms of knowing when to lock a woman down. Number 2, first is on us. We have to be willing to earn her love, right? Like, I got to be in that mindset, etc. Don't play yourself if you're not. And do the best you can not to play women. Okay? Like, be honest. But then once we get to the point where we're like, I'm ready to earn a woman's love, I'm ready to go after a woman, I want to step fully into my manhood, then number 2 is if that woman can show you, because mind you, we're past it, we're dating. You get where I'm going? Like, we did that over the last 3 weeks, part 1, part 2, part 3, if you didn't hear it. Go back and check those out. But now we know how to date. We've made it past the 3 dates. And, like, I'm dating this woman. What am I looking for? You should already have, brothers, you should already have a list. Your non-negotiables are listed and the conditions of satisfaction. What do I mean by conditions of satisfaction? the type of woman you want to marry. Kind, healthy, works out, all those kind of things, right? All those things. So now we're taking it deeper. You got a list. And the fact that you're dating her means she meets the non-negotiables. And you're beginning to understand whether or not she meets your conditions of satisfaction. In the dating process, I began to learn about the conditions of satisfaction that my wife met and the ones that she didn't. And the places that she didn't, I would poke in those areas. Like one of them, I was like, hey, you work out? She's like, yeah, I work out. I'm like, when do you work out? A couple of times a week. What do you do? I walk on a treadmill. I'm like, yeah, no, that's not really a workout. You get where I'm going? Okay, I can't check that one off. So then I began to challenge her. Why don't you come to the gym with me? Right? And then she saw how I worked out. She's like, you're insane. Okay. And I'm like, you don't want to work out? You don't. But over time, she began to see like, oh, wow. Like I could, take my body to the next level if I brought more rigor. And before we married, she was working out. She was working with a trainer and working out. You get where I'm going? And by the way, it wasn't like my wife was incredibly unhealthy. She was 28 years old and petite. But that's something that mattered to me, and I saw that, which leads me into number 2. And number 2 is that the woman you are dating shows acceptance and appreciation of you. Acceptance and appreciation. You should date a woman long enough where you have made mistakes that she is willing to let go. Right? As a matter of fact, it might not even occur as a mistake to her. You could be driving somewhere and take you all 30 minutes out the way. And you're like, yo, I think we lost. And how she handles that is going to be an indicator as to whether or not she's marriage material or not. Because if she's willing to be, that's a low gradient mistake. Okay, y'all didn't get where y'all wanted to be on time, all that. But in marriage, you're going to make bigger mistakes than that. You get where I'm going? And if she can't be with that mistake, I would probably stop the dating. You get where I'm going? Like, okay, if you get snapped on about that, you're going to be getting snapped on for the rest of your life. More than likely. You get where I'm going? If you're 30 minutes out the way and you're like, man, I think I took us down the wrong way on the highway, which, by the way, is kind of hard to do with GPS today. But let's just say it happens, right? And she was like, I don't care. I'm just with you. It's like, because she going to care when you marry, I guarantee you. Right? She be like, what were you thinking, right? Well, if you weren't looking at your phone, you would have noticed I was going the wrong way. That's how it's going to go. Okay, I promise you. But when you're dating, that's when you have more grace. And that's when you begin to see what a person, like how a person's going to show up for you when you make real mistakes in life. And if she's like, man, just, I don't care. Look at how that sun is setting. Or can we just get out here and go for a walk? Like, okay, there's acceptance in this relationship. She accepts my humanity. That's number 1. The other one is affirmation. Like she actually says what she appreciates about you. And the reason I think this is important is because one of the things I hear from most of the married men that I coach is that they do not feel appreciated in their marriage. I hear all the complaints, Linnell. Everything that's wrong, I get a list of it. But there's no acknowledgement for what I do right. As a matter of fact, for the things that I do right, the fact that I'm literally holding that house up, I haven't heard one comment of appreciation of, babe, thanks for holding us down. And if there's anything I believe that can begin to slowly erode a man over time, is lots of critique with little to no appreciation. As a matter of fact, that leads to the disconnection that typically leads to affairs. Like it opens up a man to somebody who was like, oh my goodness, like the way you opened that door was so amazing, right? He's like, really? Because, he like, ain't nobody saying, I do everything at home. And nobody says, all I did was open a door for you when you saw me. I'm not seen at home. And not that it's an excuse. What I'm saying is to any woman watching is that I think that's a very easy ground to cover, like to make sure that, you know, like that is in place for you and your man. He feels appreciated. Like he knows what he's doing well. Because let's be clear, the sister's going to tell you when you're not. OK, she's going to tell you when you drop the ball. So at least acknowledge what you appreciate about what I bring to the table. If in the dating process, this is happening early on, start to pay attention to this woman. Like, oh, acceptance and appreciation is number 2. I can make mistakes. When I make mistakes, she's willing to let those mistakes go. They're not rubbed in my face. And I'm affirmed in the relationship. And then here's the other piece that I put in with acceptance and appreciation. Trust. That she trusts you. There is trust in the relationship. Because if you go down further, like just because you put a ring on it, don't mean that it's going to transform trust. Okay? You're just going to be engaged to someone that doesn't trust you. That's all. I mean, that's all. And then you'll be married to somebody that doesn't trust you. Right? And you'll be dealing with all of her demons, every story that comes into her mind. And that also can break down the relationship over time. So to me, those are just very low-hanging fruit. Appreciation and acceptance. Like I can make mistakes, I can be affirmed, and there is a very clear line of trust. She trusts me. All right, she trusts me. And you're going to see why we build on this, because that's not in place. It's very hard to get when we get to number 7. Like you ain't getting to number 7 if that's not in place. That makes sense? Okay. All right. Now we begin to look for some of the things that, you know, probably would have come up in the third date. This is why you guys are beginning to now go steady. Is that how they say it? You're beginning to go steady. And one of the things that begins to come up is whether or not you all are fully compatible outside of the attraction. All right. And here's what I mean about compatibility. And this is a really good time to be dating somebody because you're going to learn a lot about them. So number 1, political views. Political views, right? Like we're on the same page when it comes, like you should be able to have conversations like that with the person that you are dating. Like, so you tell me, how do you feel about this election cycle? Where are you on it? And you all should be able to have a normal conversation. If things get heated, and by the way, I believe that you can have like different political views and be married. I believe that. It's about whether or not you respect each other's views. And you know, like, well, I see why you think that as a woman, and why you believe that, and why that's important to you, and why you vote that way. You know, but for me as a man, this is what's it. And you all can go, oh, okay, well, I get that. I also understand that, too. It's not going to change my vote. But, you could actually be in a conversation around something that is polarizing in a way where you still accept one another. Like we can have 2 different views, but you know each other's views. Like, you know, you don't want to put a ring on somebody you don't even know her political views. OK? The other thing is the expectation of gender roles. And again, this right here is number 3, right? Basic compatibility. Because, like, let's be clear. And by the way, I'm talking to the men now. Because let's be clear. Society says one thing. But when you get into a marriage, the marriage trumps society. In order for the marriage to work, 2 people have to be on the same page. And so, you know, people can be on their podcast talking about, well, I think this and I think that, but I'm not thinking in my marriage I know. You follow? I know the role that I play, and I know the role that my wife plays. And part of the reason I know that is because we discussed it before we got married. What do you believe the role of a man is in marriage? What do you believe the role of a woman is in marriage? And able to discuss gender roles again without there being a whole lot of, constriction. Like, you get where I'm going? Because if you all can't agree on gender roles, then you lack basic compatibility. Right? It doesn't make, why would this be, someone you would marry? Even if she meets all your non-negotiables and your conditional standards, it's like now you're beginning to realize that ideologically, you all are on two different paths. And so you will never be satisfied as a man if you marry that woman. Okay? So what does she believe in terms of gender roles? What role does she see you playing? And are you willing to play that role for her? And what role do you see her playing? And is she really willing to play that role for you? Is she willing to play that? I would like my plate made sometimes. Or you can make your own damn plate. Because those are the little small things that if that matters to you, it will begin to erode the relationship in the marriage. I didn't make your plate when we were dating. It's like, but it still mattered to me. Well, well, that's your fault, bro. You married her. Right? You get where I'm going? Like, these are things that you should know. All right? And by the way, every man is different. Another guy might be like, I want to make my own plate because, I want to make sure I know what's on there. She don't got to make my plate. Everybody's different. Right? And this is one of the reasons why we're looking at basic compatibility. Basic compatibility. Here's another place for basic compatibility. Life vision. Like, where do you see yourself going in life? What is your life vision? But more importantly, what are your lifestyle goals? And are those goals something that you all can work as a team for? Let me give you an example of what I mean. If, like my wife and I, one of the things that we decided is that when we retire, one, we want to retire early, like lifestyle goals. She's like, I'm with that. Right? Now, I could have said, hey, I'm going to work for the rest of my life. And then, she would have to be with that. Like, my purpose is so important to me that I want to work for the rest of my life. I don't see myself ever not working. Then if that was one of my lifestyle goals, then that's something she's coming in with, right? Like, so when we're in our 60s, she's like, when you gonna stop? You be like, well, I told you I wasn't. Yeah. I was going to crack a little puffy P. Diddy joke. I thought I told you I wasn't going to stop. I'm not going to do that, though. All right. I just did. All right. So lifestyle goals. Another one could be as simple as, like, hey, I want to have a second home, and we can retire in that home on a beach. Right? And she might be like, well, I'm a city person. I can't see I hate beaches. It's like, are we, this is basic compatibility. Are we working towards the same things? Because if we're working towards the same things, then I know we have something we can build on, right? That's number 3. Basic compatibility, political views, gender roles, lifestyle goals. And by the way, what this means is that as a man, you should likely have some goals of your own. Right? And if that woman, if you feel like she has everything that you're looking for, and that woman don't want to live on a beach, is a beach that important, right? That's where you begin to make those compromises. I'm like, okay, you know what? You like the city, whatever. You know what? Okay, well, what if we stayed in Chicago, but we had a condo on the lake? I can get down to, North Avenue Beach when I want to, like, I love that. I'm like, okay. So then you create your compromise. You get where I'm going? And going in that you ain't going to be able to move her to Southern Beach or something. Like, it's not, like, why would you try? Unless she changes. She might, hey, I like this. But lifestyle goals, life vision. At this point, you all should know what type of vacations you like. As a matter of fact, I believe that when you get into the dating process and it's serious, like, and you're actually like thinking about marrying this person, that you should take a vacation with them. This is just my, like spend at minimum an extended weekend, like Thursday through Monday together, because that might, I actually, years ago flew back early from Hawaii after a failed vacation experiment. I was like, I cannot stay with this woman another day. Like, I can't do it. And by the way, before the vacation, I was like, this might be it. This might be it. Like, I think this might be it. Like, this woman is okay. All right. And then I would say 4 days into the vacation, I was like, I can't do this. I made up a story. I actually left early. I made up a story about how a buddy was getting married and one of his groomsmen couldn't make it and he needed me to step in. I got to get out of here. Right. And I was going to miss his wedding to be in Hawaii with her. And I decided I ain't missing my buddy's wedding for this. And I didn't stand in the wedding. I told her I was standing. I lied. I did. I told her I was standing in the wedding. Right. But I just went to be at the wedding. I was like, I ain't missing his wedding. I mean, man, this is not, I'm done. I'm out of here. I'm flying out, and I flew out in time to make my brother's wedding. Okay. I was like, I can't, which, by the way, he's no longer married. Interesting. Cause he didn't ask these questions. He didn't go through this list. And I know that because I golf with him and we've talked about it, right? He didn't go through this list, right? He didn't do these things that I'm talking about. That moves us to number 4, which is family vision. So let me ask you, gentlemen, how many children do you want to have? How many children do you want to have?
2.
2? Okay. 2?
2.
All right. 2. Okay. So how would you go about identifying if a young lady that you are courting, right, or dating? We talked about courting over the break, you guys. By the way, you can go to watch the stream live on youtube.com/Linnell Harris or to facebook.com/Coach Linnell Harris. If you want to catch what I defined as courting versus dating and my thoughts around that. I did that over the break. Okay. So both of you all want to have 2 children. Okay. So if you want to have 2 children, then does that mean that the woman you are dating with marriage in mind, like what age limit does that create for you? Oh, this is sticky territory. This is sticky territory.
What do you mean exactly?
Well, you want to have 2 children. Do you have children already?
No.
Okay, that means she has to be able to bear you 2 children. Both of y'all young, so. But I mean, does that put an age limit on who you would date?
I believe so.
In what way? So believe so what? In what way?
I just know, like, biology-wise, women at a certain age can't really bear that many children. Or,
Well, they got IVF now. I mean, Janet had a child at 50.
This is true.
So, I mean, do you have a preference or? Here's the reason I asked you all the question. Okay? I think one of the reasons we tend to take a bit longer to actually take the relationship to a very serious place is because we're not clear.
Yeah.
You get where I'm going? Mm-hmm. Now think about, and by the way, you were very clear about how many children you want. Mm-hmm. So then, if you've thought through this, and I think this is the importance of men having vision. If you thought through this, Ade, you just turned 29.
Yeah.
So a week ago.
Yeah,
Yeah, happy birthday to our day, by the way.
Happy birthday.
Yeah. We had breakfast to celebrate his birthday last Sunday. So, let's use our day, because you guys are close to the same age, correct?
Yeah, I'm 31.
Okay, you're 31. All right. So, do you have a timeline for by when you want to be married, Titus?
No, I would say no.
No? Okay. Which is the luxury of a man. All right? Okay. It's the luxury of a man. But when you do, you want 2 children. Okay. What about you, Ade? Do you have a timeline for when you'd like to be married?
It's not necessarily, but I sort of have a timeline when I want to have kids. Like, I want to have kids by a certain.
So, how old do you want to be when you have children?
I kind of estimated like somewhere in my 40s.
Okay, you want to be 48 with a 2-year-old?
Not 40. Early 40s, maybe like 40. 42.
That's me. That's me.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe like 42, 40, like early 40s.
Okay,
like,
early 40s.
No, I don't want to be past 50 having my children, having children.
All right. So then does that create, how you get on a dating app and it's like age limit?
Yeah.
Does that create an age limit for you then? Like, as you kind of think about that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It does?
Yeah.
All right. Mm-hmm. So then how old is too old?
For my partner, probably probably in their 40s.
And so if they're in their 40s, that's too old?
I think so. But late 40s maybe. Yeah.
Late 40s?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, this is tough.
I would probably say the same thing, too.
Same thing?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let me put this tidbit in for ladies real quick, because that could be triggering. By the way, this is for men. And this is an honest conversation between 3 men that's on the air. If you don't think these conversations are not happening, you get where I'm going? Ade, do we talk about marriage off the air?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Titus, we talk about marriage.
Absolutely.
If you think these conversations are not happening, so you could be offended by this, or you could be like, let me sit down and understand. Right? All right. So now, these men want children, and particularly they want 2, both of you all want 2 children. Okay. Now, here's something I share with a young lady in Ghana. And again, we're talking family vision. Okay, family vision. A few years ago, I was in Ghana with a group, and there was a young lady, single, attractive, and she was basically saying, we were talking about marriage and all that. And I'm like, well, what do you think? She was like, why would I get married right now? Like, I'm in my prime. I can date whoever I want. Right? And I was telling her, this is what I told her. I said, this is why you should be dating with intention, because you are in your prime, which means that you get to make the best pick of the men who will want to date you. Because what will happen, ladies, listen to me, especially young women, okay? Because what happens, women hit a certain, let's be clear, right? Can we just talk for real? Can we talk, y'all? Like,
Let's do it.
Right? Yeah. Like, there's a period where there'll be younger men who are like, oh my God, like, let's say, woman's 30 years old, and it's like, he's 24, he'll still date her. You know where I'm going? Yeah. And a man who's 40 will still date her. Like, she has access to a lot of men because she can reproduce for that man. And most men want children. When you think about, and by the way, I know there's a group of women listening who you're more mature and, you desire marriage, and just consider that man likely might be widowed, divorced, or already have children. And he'll be open to that, right? But I'm talking to 2 single men who don't have children. Okay. So what I was telling her, and I believe at the time she was about 30 herself. Okay. I was like, this is when you should be very clear about the type of man that you want to marry, because you get to pick. Because so many men are pursuing you, then you get to pick who you marry, right? It's not, well, I guess he asked, right? It's like you get to pick. And so this is a little tip for women. When you are in your season, that's when you should be picking. Otherwise, the pickings will become slim, right? And this is a show for men, but I'm just letting that's a little tidbit for ladies, and you can take it as you will. I'm giving you some wisdom. Like, you'll get a better pick when you got volume than you will later when there's no volume, period. All right? Okay, now back to the brothers. Somebody said she wanted to enjoy hot girl summer. That's literally one of the things she said, bro. Like, it's a hot girl summer. I'm kicking it. And I'm like, sis, I think you're making a mistake. This is the time you should be seriously considering companionship and identifying a man who will marry you, because you'll look back 10 years from now and go, oh, why did, like, what, man, I was that. And, age is a thing. It's a thing. All right, we got to honor it. Okay, so back to my men. So family vision, the number of children. And as a man, when you say this is how many children I want, then you should be thoughtful about what that looks like in your life. How you played it out, like I want them in my early 40s. Because then what that means is then when you want to begin dating with lots of intent. Like, really, like, okay, at this point I need to begin dating with intention and looking for my wife. Now, here's the other thing. It ain't just about children and age. It's also about the parenting approach and values. Do you all have a similar parenting approach? And do you share parenting values? This is huge. This is huge. One of the things that I knew made my wife and I very compatible is that when it came to our parenting approach and values, it came up in the first date. I knew her values were similar to mine. We will raise children in the same way. I knew after the first date, I was like, okay, I could raise a family with her, because we both saw things the same. I don't know how the conversation came up. There might have been children there. I'm like, I wouldn't, my child wouldn't. Like, me too. We got into that. And the next thing I was like, oh, like the values that you have are very similar to mine. As a father, there have been times where I had to tell my wife, just trust me on this with my son. And guess what she does? She trusts me, right? Going back to their very first, number 2, acceptance, appreciation, and trust. Like, think about this. If there's no trust in the relationship before family, like, if she don't fundamentally trust you in the world, you think that woman's going to trust you with her children? You live with my children too. I'm going to ask you again. Do you think that woman's going to trust you with? It's going to create more conflict. Okay. So I align that you and I have a similar parenting approach and very similar parenting values. All right. That's number 4, family vision. Now, here's the other thing around family vision. You also need to understand that woman's family history. You need to know her family history and family health. Okay? So, what is your family's history? And you want, at this point, if you're dating seriously for marriage, this is where we want to begin having conversations about family trauma. And get this, the family's mental health. So if when I was dating my wife, I'm like, hey, this is what you're going to experience when you meet my family. So that way, when she met my family, she wasn't like, it was like, oh, okay, yeah, you told me about this. you told me who your family was. Number 5, relational expectations. So here's what I mean by relational expectations. Like, before you marry somebody, you should know their love language. And you should know whether or not you can fulfill on that. That you can adequately fulfill that. Yeah, like, I am okay with fulfilling on that for the rest of my life. But if you're like, it drives me crazy, it's like words of affirmation are her love language, I always got to say something. Like, if it pulls you down, it might not be for you, right? It may not be for you. This is something you have to be willing and you want to do. My wife's, her love language is quality time. Can you imagine if I didn't like spending time with my wife? How would the relationship go? Like, I like spending time with my wife. I do not mind spending time with my wife. So I don't have a problem with her love language. You get where I'm going? And so from that perspective, then when you look at the relational expectations and me understanding her love language, I believe that I can love her for the rest of her life because I like spending time with her. Then there needs to be a communication agreement. When you look at relational expectations, there should also be a communication agreement. Now, what do I mean about a communication agreement? Like, how are we going to communicate with one another? My wife and I, when we have a disagreement, maybe even an argument, there is an expectation that it is respectful. That is a communication expectation that we put in place very early after meeting one another. Okay? I don't curse at her. She doesn't curse at me. It ain't no what the, ain't none of that happening. That is a communication agreement that we both work very hard to remain within the boundaries of. I will always respect you. There might be times when I'm upset and I'll take a breath, but I'm not going to disrespect you. That is part of the agreement. Okay? So when you look at relational expectations, these are agreements that should be in place. Communication is one of them. And a communication agreement is ongoing. It can change. Because, like, one of the things my wife and I are talking about right now, she's like, man, we need to put a few other things in place in terms of our communication. By the way, men, your wife will never feel like you communicate enough. Ever, never. Like, so don't even let this be like, well, I can't stand the fact that she feels like I don't communicate enough, blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah. Most men, I think the brothers will agree with me, like, all of us, when our wives are probably like, on a scale of 1 to 5, how does your husband communicate? We're probably all 2 or 3s. Right? Like, all of us. And we're like, but I communicate a lot. I feel like I communicate a lot. No, I don't. Not to my wife. Like, I just don't. We're built different in that aspect. But in terms of the agreement, I will do everything I can to meet you where you are. All right. The other part of relational expectations are sexual expectations. Like, what are your sexual expectations? This is one of the reasons. Let me put this in real quick. This is one of the reasons I believe porn is so corrosive for men, because what it does is it perverts our sexual expectation of the wife. Like, most of us don't want to marry a porn star. I mean, you get where I'm going? Like, you don't want to marry a porn star. So then why would you expect the sex of a porn star? I'm talking to the men right now. But because, society has pushed a lot of this on us and we get addicted to it, it's one of the things that a lot of men really struggle with. Then what happens is I'm looking at this and it begins to warp my sexual expectations. So I'm saying this to brothers: if you have a porn addiction or a porn problem, start to do everything you can to kick that addiction. It is messing with you, bro. It is messing with you in ways, and it could be one of the reasons you can't bond. All right? Let it go. If you want to have a beautiful family one day, consider that is not part of the recipe. And there are men out here, brothers out here, who can support you with kicking that habit. They struggled with it, and they've overcome it. And I've actually I'm working with some brothers now. I'm really looking to put something more formal together for men. And I went and found men in particular who have struggled with porn and conquered porn. And I had to find it because I didn't have the struggle. So it's difficult for me to say, well, this is all you got to do. Because this is one of the benefits of being 48. It just wasn't available like that. And I say that not because I'm better. I say that because if I were 16 years old in today's environment, I have no idea what shape I would be in mentally when it comes to that. I have no idea. There's no judgment. Okay. But thank God it just wasn't available. It wasn't available in my house. I couldn't come across any magazines because my dad didn't have any. And it was like, when I was that age, I was looking. That's how I know. It wasn't, you know what I mean? Because I was that urge that I want to see, I want to, what's going on. Like, adolescence is like that for men. And so for boys, I want to see what's going on and, what's happening. But I couldn't find anything. And so I didn't get hooked on it. And for those of us who have got hooked, do everything you can to break that, man, break that addiction. Okay. So sexual expectations. This is long term, too. Like, consider it's not just about right now. But, a lot of men have erectile dysfunction. How would you handle it if I could not have sex with you? How, would we stay married? That woman's going to go through menopause one day. For her, you need to understand how you're going to handle that. Is our bond strong enough to go through periods where there is no sex? Because that will happen in a marriage. I have 2 children. After my wife had our children, there was a period of time that was stressful on the relationship, not because we couldn't have sex, but because we had a new child. And so you have this tension where we're relearning each other and how we're moving, and we're not able to bond at the same time. And so as a man, like, are you ready to deal with that? Are you ready to deal with that? That is not an excuse to go have an affair. And so before you get married, these are things you need to know about yourself. These are things you need to know about yourself. And it's things that you should be discussing with that potential significant other, that potential wife. Sex is one of those things that people do but don't talk about. It's just it's weird that way. And I believe that you should be able to sit across from the table on a date and have a healthy conversation about sex with a woman before you marry her. If you can't do that, you should not propose. You should not propose. Okay. The last thing when it comes to relational expectations that I want to cover is health expectations. My wife and I both had health expectations of one another. If I marry you, you are like, marriage is a long-term commitment, promise, and vow. And so part of that long-term commitment, promise, and vow that I got from my wife is that she will take care of her health, that she will tend to her health in the ways that she knows how. You know what I'm going? So that was a health expectation. I will do it. You will do it. You won't have to deal with ED, baby, because I'm going to do everything I can to stay healthy as a man. Okay. And if you do for some reason, just know that it wasn't because I neglected my health. You get where I'm going? Like, so very clear health expectations when it comes to what it is that you all are both looking for when you get married. Okay, that's number 5, relational expectation. Now I want to talk money. Number 6, financial clarity and vulnerability. Financial clarity and vulnerability. I have made, and this might be unreasonable now in today's world, but I had set a standard for myself that the woman I was going to marry would have no debt. Now, in today's world of student loans and all that, I don't even know if that's if that's possible. But I scored. My wife didn't have any. Man, I remember when she was like, "Yeah, no, I had a little college debt. I paid all that off." I was like, "Oh, now, hey." I was like, "Okay." Not only is she beautiful, not only is she smart, not only am I crazy attracted to her, she doesn't have that. Like, oh, I was like, yeah. Now y'all see why I was 8 months? I was like, oh, let's go. Let's go. Okay. Her credit score was healthy. We had a very similar, this is one of the things for me, I knew. My wife asked me a question about what my thoughts on money were. And I said, well, I could tell you, or I could give you a book. And so she was like, what's the book? And so I gave her the book. And she read it in a week. By the time we went out that Friday, she was able to tell me about the book. I was, okay. You get where I'm going? Right? Titus is shaking his head like, okay, 6 months. Right? All right, 8 months. Right? It's like, and I think, like, as a man, when a woman, like, when you see that level of compatibility and financial clarity, vulnerability, like, we were there. Yeah. You know, like, I knew what was going on. And here's the thing. Let me say this to the ladies. When you begin checking these boxes, most men, even if you're not making what you intend to make, you know, you might have a little debt or your credit score. Like, most men are going to be like, that's fixable. I can fix that. You get where I'm going? Like, if you show up as the woman, like, and so the reason I made this number 6 is because by the time, like, this man has earned your love, right? There's acceptance and appreciation. There's basic compatibility. You all have the same family vision. You're very clear on your relational expectations. Like, by the time we get to money, if you can't be vulnerable, brothers, if she can't be vulnerable, it's got to be, you know, it's like, what, like, you don't trust, like, what about me don't you trust? And this is something I need to know. Because otherwise, it will create resentment in the marriage. Like, now I know what's going on, but, you know, you represented yourself differently. And by the way, for men too, brother, you also have to be clear and vulnerable. And so to me, it's one of the reasons why going into the dating game, acting as if you have what you don't, is really setting you up for failure. Like, if you're on a budget, be on a budget. You get where I'm going? Like, hey, babe, I'm not really trying to spend that kind of money on food. Like, I'm trying to save for X, Y, and Z. We've had some phenomenal conversations. Like, can we do this differently? Like, by now, there should be financial clarity and vulnerability. And how you know she's the woman you want to marry is when she's like, I get it. I like that. Yeah, let's stack this money. Instead, you cook one night, I cook one night. You get where I'm going? Like, now it's like, oh, yeah. Like, there's something here. And what I don't want is for brothers to be experiencing this and, like, you're not pulling it. You're not jumping in on this. Like, it's time to get on a knee, bro, and say, hey. Like, you it. Here's the other piece when it comes to financial clarity and vulnerability. Career vision. What is your career vision? Like, where do you want to go? Because this impacts the family. And then also, what is her career vision? And can you be with that? She might say, look, I'm going to always be a working woman. Like, you know, our children are going to be in daycare. Like, can you be with that? She may say, I want to take a pause after every baby. Can you support us? Can you be with that? You get where I'm going? Like, these are the conversations that are important because if you, like, both of you all want to have children. Well, let's say in that 8th month, she has to take off. Are you prepared to handle everything financially? And maybe not right now, but here's the thing I want men to listen to. There's a stat. I always say, don't believe me. There is a stat that basically says that when a man gets married, his financial future improves by 70%. So think about whatever your base financial, like the base financial moves you're making right now. If you were to improve that by 70%, that's what a good woman brings to a man. I can testify to it. I was making great money. Well, good money. Great money is like 12 figures. I mean, it's a lot of figures. You know what I'm saying? Okay. But I was making good money. I was able to take good care of myself. Since I've been with my wife, I've seen that 70% improvement. If you recall, Attorney Finn and I were having a conversation where I said that I'm not concerned, like if Pam and I got divorced and she took half, it does not concern me because she deserves it. She deserves it because of what she's put into me, the support, my career, the opportunity to bounce things off of her, how we've built things together. And so a lot of men who are like, well, I might lose out financially, consider that if you don't get married, you're losing financially. And I don't think we think about it that way, especially if the woman is meeting these criteria. Like, think about this. If a woman is matching up with you, where you've earned her love, she accepts and appreciates you, right? There's basic compatibility. You all share the same family vision. You know her family history. She understands you understand each other's health. You have clarity on relational expectations and love language, communication, sexual expectations, and health. And by the way, that's going to hold you accountable. Now you got to get up and go to the gym. She'd be like, hey, look, I don't want you getting all big on me. I want you to be healthy. I want you to be around. You got to get up. Like, it's going to be irritating sometimes, babe. Did you go work out? Babe, did you go work out? But, it's going to be, women will hold you accountable, right? It could be irritating. You're like, oh, my goodness, woman. You know where I'm going? But this is why men who are married are healthier. Okay? This is why men who are married are wealthier. All right? And then financial clarity, you have financial clarity and vulnerability. It's like, now we're talking. So then what's the final piece here? The final piece for me is that you all are aligned on purpose and spirituality. This woman not only knows your purpose, but she supports it. Now she's invaluable. Now, like, if you want to know what made it where I was like, okay, I'm clear. Like, this is it. It was the way my wife supported my purpose before we got married. Right? It was the way she supported the work that I did. It's the way she listened to this show when I was engaged. Because, by the way, I was single when I first started on the radio, right? Then I was engaged, right? And the way she tuned in and listened and supported me and what about this? And, I listened to the show and, you didn't think about that. It was like how she supported my purpose. I knew that was going to take me to another level. It's like having two brains. And one has the feminine perspective and I just don't have it. You get where I'm going? Like, it's going to make me better. Linnell, if you say this, the ladies will love that. I'm like, really? You get where I'm going? Like, just, a help meet. A help meet. We aligned on religious beliefs. We figured that out in the first date, right? And for some of us, that's a non-negotiable. But you got to take it deeper because then we had to go into doctrine. You get where I'm going? Because it's weird if a person has a doctrine that you don't. You're like, what are you doing? What's going on here? Right? And so religious beliefs, and it, by the way, if they have a doctrine that you don't, you've agreed to actually be okay with that. All right? You all share the same core values. In my family, we have a creed. I wrote the creed. My wife signed off on it. That makes sense? Like, how am I, like, when you think about the impact that a woman has on how children are raised, how am I going to raise them in alignment with the creed and our core values alone? It's impossible. A woman's connection to those children will trump yours every time. Every time. And so when it comes down to purpose and spirituality, it's very important that you all have basically the same core, like you identify the core values that you're going to move forward with. And then finally, what I would say is moral beliefs. Like when it comes to your moral beliefs, there's either alignment or agreement. It's like, that's what she believes this, and I'm okay with that. And he believes that, and I'm okay with that. Or we believe the same thing. Let me tell you this, brothers. When you find a woman that can meet you in all 7 of these areas in the categories that I shared, I believe I can say with all confidence, you are a fool if you don't marry her. You're a fool. And here's what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid that while some men have had some struggles, that we got a few fools. We got a few fools where this is right there, and you're not pulling the trigger for whatever reason. And I said it before, I'll say it again. I believe that the answer our community needs is family. And the only way that we can create family is we need men who are courageous enough to step forward and get married and understand the value that marriage has for them. I know I'm healthier. I know I'm better. I know I'm smarter. I can go down the list of all the ways that my marriage has improved my quality of life. Is there a sacrifice that must be made as a married man? Absolutely. But isn't there a sacrifice for everything that we want if it's going to make us better? Every goal that you craft and achieved required some level of sacrifice. And so my question is to us is, as men, when you come across this woman, I guess this is what Art always says, now what? It's on you, right? Now what? I wanted to make sure I put a resource out here for men where you can go somewhere, because we don't have that level of mentorship these days. Like, you can go somewhere and you can go down the list and know with certainty that the woman that is sitting across from me is marriage material. Thank you for watching Inspirational Perspective. If you love this show and you want to see more content like this, you can go right here. And if you like this subject and you want to see much more content that we have available for you, just click the button here. As always, thanks for watching. Be sure to watch the show live, 7 a.m. every Sunday morning on WBON Radio, or you can catch it right here on YouTube or Facebook.com/Coach Liddell Harris. Be sure to hit that like button. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe so we can get more content just like this to you.